Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Noel and I review and unbox subscription boxes here on my channel, and today I have a book subscription. Now this is not one that is sent to me for review, although occasionally they have sent me a PR box or two through their VIP program. I prefer to be a subscriber because I like to stay as current as possible with my book subscriptions, because I do, especially when there are gifts included that are associated with certain page numbers, I do like to read the books in advance before giving you my review of the box, just because I feel like that is a little bit more of a testimony to the experience and how the whole box works. Of course, I am talking about Once Upon a Book Club. This is their adult selection. It comes in this pink box. There is also a young adult selection that comes in a green box, and now they also have a middle grader subscription that comes in an orange box. And then of course they also have all kinds of limited edition and holiday boxes that are available. Now I do have a referral link and a discount code for you, and that is simply Noel10. That'll save you 10%. As always, I'll leave all that information for you in the description box below. But I believe that this is the February box. They are pretty good these days about being on time. The other reason that I don't mind being a subscriber and paying for my boxes is because I do benefit from the referrals that I get through those of you who do decide to subscribe. I get a little bit of money off that goes towards me renewing my subscription every 3 months, but also they send out hints. So if I find in an upcoming box that it is a genre that I'm not necessarily interested in, or I just feel like I'm not going to have time, it's pretty easy to go ahead and skip a month. But I was very excited actually about this one, and so it was kind of funny, the timing, because when it arrived and I started reading it, I sort of remembered the synopsis, the hints, because they're not just like a paragraph, it's like a whole blurb almost in terms of the hints, so you can usually kind of figure out what the book is ahead of time and if it's something that you're going to want to read. I knew that it was going to sync up with my trip to Vietnam, and indeed all of the places like covered in the book, except for maybe Montana, are places that I could really imagine the setting, because it starts in Coronado, which is right here in San Diego. Of course it happens in Vietnam as well, because the main character is a nurse in the Vietnam War. And then of course they come back, she comes back to San Diego. She even spends some R&R in Hawaii. So there were a lot of places that were sort of familiar to me that really helped to bring the book to life, as well as of course the books that are included. There's usually anywhere from 3 to 5 gifts included. You'll come across a page with a sticky note, and then you get to open up that gift. Usually they do a really good job with the wrapping and kind of theming the whole book, the whole curation, the whole experience. You also get a bookmark and a 5x7 note card with a quote from it, so if you like to have that sort of front and center in your reading area, that's kind of a nice thing too. The box is $49.99. That does include domestic shipping, and like I said, I do have that code where you can save 10% if you would like to get signed up for the upcoming box. I haven't skipped for the last few months. A lot of the hints have sounded like something that I would like to read, even occasionally more on the romance side. I'm usually more of a thriller and historical fiction person, and that was the case with this book by Kristin. One of the nice things about this particular box was that it was a hardback, because I think this is a pretty recent release, so we don't always get hardbacks from Once Upon a Book Club. I'm always excited when we do, because I kind of have started collecting books again for my very limited library space. I just have some bookshelves around the house. I definitely need a bigger house and I need more bookshelves, but I do like having hardcover books. So you also, in addition to that quote card and the bookmark that I mentioned, you do get kind of a reading guide. I don't know why they still do it in this size. I feel like I might hold on to it a little bit more if it was something that I could tuck inside of the books, but that is what they do. Usually there is a little extra, like an activity or information on the back. In this case, they did a playlist from that time period, which I thought was great. And she does really have a lot of things that bring her back to her time in Vietnam, and a playlist seems really appropriate. We do hear a lot of song titles along the way, so that seemed like a good idea. We usually get a nice author's interview as well. This, I believe, was just like the afterword. I don't think they did an actual in addition interview through Once Upon a Book Club, because it's not formatted in that question and answer way that a lot of the other ones are. They do have discussion questions, as well as a quick list just of the gifts that are in there, so that you can make sure when you first receive the box that you got all of the associated gifts. This time around there were 4 gifts, but let me go ahead and open up the box and pull those out. I haven't like looked at it for a little while. So you can see they definitely have some nice branding. They kind of make everything go along with the book. We had one kind of larger one. Sometimes the gifts necessitate a larger box, but they were able to go with their standard box size this time around. So this time we got the quote, and the bookmark had the same quote. So here is the bookmark, and here is the quote card. I'll show it to you. Sometimes we'll actually have like a little note from the author on the back, but not this time around. The women had a story to tell, even if the world wasn't quite yet ready to hear it. So definitely a lot of female power in this book for sure. So what I will do is I will read the blurb so you have an idea of whether or not this is a book that you might want to get. Sometimes they do have extra boxes available in the shop. You can use my code for that as well. And then I will read the passages associated with the gifts and share them with you here. I don't think there are many major spoilers, but this, like I said, was a big book and there were definitely a couple twists, not things that were totally unpredictable though. So I do think this was a good value, especially considering that this hardcover book has an MSRP of $30 and you're paying $50 for the box. So that's pretty darn good. And you're probably getting a discount if you do a multi-month subscription up front, like I do. So let's see. Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frances Frankie McGrath hears these words, it's a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era. So that sounds pretty lofty, but I mean, it was very epic. The first part of it is her time in Vietnam, and the second part of it is the aftermath and how she deals with that. And really about her friendships with the women that she met there. There is obviously some romance as well in there, but it's not like all happy endings. It's not like she comes back unscathed. She definitely is dealing with PTSD before they necessarily really understood that. I mean, they're still working on understanding that. So it felt very realistic and not too saccharine and sweet and sort of simplified. So let's go ahead and go to page 120, which is where we got our first gift. And this is what it sometimes looks like. We just got the smaller sticky note. Maybe they're not doing the full size sticky notes anymore. And this time around it was just wrapped. So they did have some wrapping paper printed that says page 120. And I can just imagine them busily in the warehouse at Once Upon a Book Club putting that together. So this is, she has become a pretty experienced and talented nurse, but she has grown to love another captain there, a doctor, but he has been injured, unfortunately, I think coming back from his R&R in Maui with his wife. So even though there's a lot of tension between the two of them, they don't actually act on it, but now he has been injured. She saw the duffel bag at his feet. Those are Captain Callahan's things? Yes, ma'am. Frankie reached into her pocket and pulled out a felt-tipped marker and the gray smalt stone she'd been given by the young Vietnamese boy. It seemed like a lifetime ago that he'd pressed it into her palm. It had become a talisman for her. She wrote, "You fight," on one side of the stone and McGrath on the other. She slipped it into his duffel bag. She leaned over and kissed his bandaged cheek, felt the heat of his fever, and whispered, "I love you, Jamie." Slowly she drew back, straightened. It took every scrap of strength she possessed to step away while they prepped him to leave, and then rushed him out of the OR and toward the helipad. Halfway to the helipad, Frankie heard the medic yell, "Code!" and saw him begin chest compressions. Jamie's heart had stopped. So really rendering moment. So yes, she had like basically been paid by a young Vietnamese boy with a river rock, a smooth rock. But this is a cool interpretation. So we got a river rock soapstone, and then they did actually put on the back a little quote, the same quote that I just read to you about her reaching into her pocket and pulling out this stone and sending him a message in his duffel bag. So we don't know if he ever makes it, if he gets that, but it's just kind of sweet that she sends that. And she does love him, even though, of course, they can't be together. They aren't together. So then they put a plastic wrap on it, and it says, "You fight" on one side and McGrath on the other. But this really does look like a stone. I kind of think that's neat. So I thought that was a cool gift for them to include, and kind of a good indicator of the sort of value, I feel like, that's a lot of the gifts. I do feel like one of the gifts was one of the higher valued items this time, and so the final gift, it's always kind of a bummer when the final gift is sort of like a lesser value. You kind of want to be wowed at the end, but you know, in terms of making it go along with the story, they don't necessarily get to choose the order in which the gifts come. The next one came on page 245. So that was this big gift. And by the way, you guys, let's actually have a secret password. So when you come across a video, when you come across a secret password in one of my videos, you want to enter it along with your contact information in the Google form that's linked for you in the description box below. And then about 5 days into the following month, I will use a random number picker to select a few winners to receive a mystery box as my way of saying thank you for watching my videos. You have to be 18 years or older. You have to have a US or Canadian mailing address. Canadians, I need a little help with the shipping. And of course, you have to be subscribed to my channel. Doesn't have to be publicly because I can verify with you via email, but today's secret password is going to be helicopter. It was kind of interesting because while I was in Vietnam, I did have a chance to see the building that the last US helicopter with US passengers left from Vietnam during the fall of Saigon, which is what we Americans call it. So that was just kind of interesting, seeing it side by side. That building is still there, and seeing it with a picture from that day. That was kind of a highlight for me as someone who once upon a time, like decades ago, studied some Vietnam War literature. So let's see, on page 245, so this is after the war. She's actually found out that someone else in her life, she experiences a lot of life loss in this book, to the war, of course. And she's found out that someone else has been shot down and will not be coming back. Her girlfriends come to her rescue because she has kind of fallen down into a well of depression. So let's see. Frankie was surprised that they seemed to know the house and have a plan. They walked through the yard, across the street, and out to the beach, where 3 empty chairs and a portable ice chest waited for them. Barb set the radio on the ice chest and cranked up the music. Frankie felt unsteady, listening to the surf roar toward her. The familiar music took her back to the best of Vietnam and the worst. "I loved him," she said out loud. Barb handed her a gin and tonic, said, "Sit, Frankie." Frankie didn't sit so much as she collapsed. Ethel sat down beside her, held her hand. Barb sat in the third chair. The 3 of them held hands and stared out at the Pacific Ocean crashing beautifully onto the shore, the constant ceaseless battering of water, the quiet retreat of each wave. So there's where that playlist kind of comes in. So this was kind of a cool item. You know, sometimes the Vietnam War, especially, I feel like, as terrible as it was, is glorified a little bit in movies. You know, we especially saw it, like, you know, things like, I don't know, Forrest Gump. You see like the camaraderie of it and like the time that they are able to spend like on the beach, and you don't always see all of the horror of it. So she is kind of hearkening back to those times, you know, at the Officers Club, or being able to enjoy some R&R. We got this kind of cool collapsible cooler with a very bookish print. I am so thrilled that Once Upon a Book Club did something that is not in pink, because that seems to be their default color when they have items made. It's kind of, it's collapsible, which I think is great for storage, but it is a little bit bulky because they did use these metal bars, but it is kind of cool. So it does say, "Be the best version of yourself" on there, which is something from the book. So that's kind of a nice little thing. And it's not too related to the book that it's going to seem awkward to have that. Great. So it's 11 by 10 by 8, collapses down to 2 inches tall. I do like that these handles, and they do have a nice soft grip to them, give it a little bit of structure. And then here, it's just this nice insulated cooler. So good size if you are going to do a little picnic at the beach or a little outdoor reading this summer. So I thought this was pretty cute, and I do like the pattern on it. So that was a good gift, and that was, like I said, probably the hero gift of this particular box. Then we have page, yeah, I think that even when they have space, they were doing the smaller stickies, so I think that's what they're doing now, which is great. It totally saves on space. So this time on page 314, so eventually she kind of comes to a crossroads with her parents in Coronado here in San Diego, and she decides to move and live basically with her two friends that she met who are also nurses in the war, and she's away from home and not really in contact with them. But she does find out, because she gets involved in Veterans Against the War, she does talk to some Navy wives, and she finds out that her mom has had a stroke. So she actually goes home to take care of her mom, who does recover. A little spoiler there. So she, this is where we meet back up with her. Frankie rubbed lotion into her mother's dry hands. "That feel good," Mother said, struggling for the words. Frankie leaned down and kissed her mother's dry cheek. Mom's eyes fluttered shut. She tired so easily, but that was to be expected in the first few days after a stroke. She was at home in the hospital bed that had been set up in a downstairs guest room. She was often frustrated. Sometimes she couldn't find a word or chose the wrong word or slurred her speech. Every now and then, a bout of vertigo made her sick to the stomach. But, of course, you know, Frankie is a nurse, so this is a good opportunity for her to reconcile with her parents, because she does come home to take care of her mom. So this is our gift on page 314, and this just kind of reminded me of the patriotic bunting that you see all across Coronado Island, which is very much a Navy town. There's even like base there, and it was kind of interesting because Frankie's brother goes into Vietnam as part of the Navy. They're very much a Navy family, even though her dad didn't serve. But the Army is the only branch of the military that would actually take a brand new, recently graduated nursing student. The other ones wanted you to have more experience, even though she definitely got all of that experience, and of course was not treated great when she got back home. They treated her like she hadn't actually been a surgical nurse for 2 years in Vietnam. So we got some Calm Lavender Hand Cream, and it does actually say in that purple bar, OUABC, which is Once Upon a Book Club. So they are kind of white labeling and having these items made. I don't know how I feel about that. I understand it in terms of cost savings for them. So let's just see. It does have the batch date, as well as the manufacturing date, as well as the... It's interesting though, because it does say, oh, I think it's in reverse order, so it's probably the 8th of January 2024. I was like, because they didn't make it in August of 2024, and it does have the expiration date, so you would want to know that that's the 7th of January. But here's what the tube looks like inside, and I was worried that it didn't have the ingredients, but it does indeed have the ingredients. It is 2 fluid ounces, just a little lavender hand cream. Obviously, that is a almost direct, literal embodiment of the item that was mentioned in the book. So I didn't mind that, but I'm not sure how I feel about all the white labeling that they're doing, creating their own, like especially Bath and Body products for this book club. Let's see, we have one more that is on page 453, almost at the end. Let's see how many pages this whole book was before the author's note. Let's see, it was a little over, it was 464. So here is the Vietnam Women's Memorial. There's a statue, and of course we all know the glossy black wall, which I have had the opportunity to visit, and it is definitely striking. Let's see, so we have, and she actually goes to the unveiling of that wall in the book. So this is where that is happening, and that was, of course, on November 13th, 1982, which I didn't even realize that was that recent that we finally had that. So let's see. Let's see. Frankie pulled out her battered old boonie hat and felt a wave of nostalgia, thinking of all the places where she'd worn this hat, all the times she'd had to hold it down so rotor wash didn't whip it off her head. A dozen pins and patches decorated it, mementos her patients had given her, both from platoons and squadrons, even a happy face pin and a peace symbol. When she had written "Make love, not war" across... When had she written "Make love, not war" across the brim in magic marker? She didn't remember. She'd worn this hat on her medcap trips into the villages, and on her supply flights to Long Bin, on the beach, and even on her R&R to Kauai. She'd worn it handing out kids to kids at the orphanages and sitting in the back of a deuce and a half, bumping over red dirt roads and splashing through rivers of mud. So she has these touchstones. She doesn't have the stone anymore, of course, so she has that. So we have this little envelope with some dog tags telling us that it is on page 453. So instead of getting a pin or a patch, we got some stickers kind of in that hippie, like 60s vibe, which, okay, so we have this one that says, you have a story to tell, so a little bookish item. We have show yourself more love, so definitely modernized. And we have choose love, read books, choose love with the happy face. Now these to me just felt like kind of a low value item. I realized that we definitely got our money's worth with just the book and the cooler and the lotion and the rock soap, but I would have preferred just maybe a simple peace pin. It would have been more literal to what was given, what was mentioned in the story, but also like I probably would have used it more if we just had a little happy face pin or patch versus these little stickers that I'm not sure that I will actually use. But you guys let me know your opinion. I thought this was decent in terms of the gifts, some hand cream, a cute collapsible cooler, this rock soapstone, and then the stickers. Not my favorite gift, but not terrible either. Overall, another good box from Once Upon a Book Club in terms of the gifts, and I also really enjoyed the book, so if you are interested in historical fiction, I do highly suggest. If you got to this point in my video and you missed it, there was a secret password, so you might want to go back and find that. Thank you so much for watching my video. I will see you all very soon in my next unboxing.